Story 1. I am glad this is coming to light. I have been in fashion merchandising since 2010, and the way these brands have been deceiving customers about production sources while charging exorbitant prices is unacceptable. Story 2. This has been a well-known tidbit for years. It is no secret that the price stems from luxury branding rather than the item itself. However, it often goes unnoticed. Therefore, I am not surprised, but I am surprised that they chose TikTok to reveal this. China has significantly diminished its concern regarding its relationship with the United States government. The direct message to the American people of "you are being cheated" is an effective tactic. It is also an interesting way to navigate around the tariffs imposed by an unpopular president. Story 3. It's interesting. I was surprised to learn that they are made in China. I saw a $28,000 handbag on the news regarding tariffs. At that price, I expected a Parisian craftsman to be making it by hand, not in a sweatshop. Then again, I know little about handbags. Story 4. Good. Forget luxury products and their deceptive nature. Inflated prices for inferior products created with artificial scarcity to make people believe they have value. I hope all the giants fail. Story 5. I think that Trump is a shockingly bad businessman who gets embarrassingly outplayed whenever he tries to be the tough guy. Story 6. It's interesting that a country run by supposed communist farmers, according to Vice President Vance, has to teach supposed wealthy capitalists how foolish they are. Story 7. There was a video circulating online of someone visiting a store that sold Make America Great Again branded souvenirs, such as hats, t-shirts, and coffee cups. He wanted to see what was actually made in the United States. Spoiler alert: less than 50% of the products were made in the United States. Some items had strategically placed stickers stating "Product of the USA," covering up "Made in China." Others specified that they were made in China in very small print. I believe there was something labeled Hecho and Mexico as well. Even the inexpensive items that could theoretically be produced in the United States are not. For someone to live without using any Chinese goods, they would have to be naked and living in a cave. Literally everything you use in daily life today has some components made in China, regardless of its price or brand. Story 8. Anything that China does to expose the flaws of capitalism is good in my opinion. The system has left us with a climate on the brink of collapse, microplastics permeating our bodies and brains, and fascism making a resurgence. This is accompanied by the greatest wealth disparity in the history of the planet. We can do better than capitalism, and no, I do not mean communism. Story 9. I used to work for a company that is also a world-famous brand, just as recognizable as Disney or Coca-Cola. Half of the business they did was general merchandise, that is, clothing plastered with the brand's logo and name. The brand claims that its main product is made in America, which I believe they can assert since 55% of each product is manufactured in America while all the components are made overseas. However, not one stitch of their clothing comes from anywhere other than China and India. I know this because my boss, who was in charge of overseeing the manufacture of the clothing line, went to China every other month. I am not sure why anyone would be surprised or shocked to find out that much of what they spend the most money on is made in Asian sweatshops for very low wages. Story 10. Luxury brands have always been wasteful. It costs around $80 to manufacture a Gucci bag, while Tiffany has a profit margin of about 1,000%. Story 11. My wife used to work in product development at Burberry and has visited factories in China, India, and Italy. I believe these TikToks are just rage bait and marketing. First of all, there is a significant misconception about Chinese manufacturing. People often associate it with cheap knockoffs, but a considerable amount of advanced manufacturing occurs there, often of better quality than in the United States or the European Union. Over the past 2 decades, many high-end Chinese manufacturers have recruited senior European staff to develop the domestic manufacturing base. For example, in silks, China's quality is currently far ahead of Europe, just as India excels in embroidery. These products are made by highly trained staff who earn significantly better wages than those producing low-cost items in discount stores. Burberry primarily produced its entry-level Burberry Brit range in China at that time. The runway and main collections were still manufactured in Italy and Portugal, especially for leather goods, where both wages and craftsmanship are high. Additionally, people often underestimate the costs of high-quality fabrics, leather, and other materials, as well as the price difference between quality buttons and inferior ones, among other details. Story 12. It is entertaining to observe social media in a way that does not impact me too much because I was not going around buying luxury brand items anyway. The things that I would be interested in are not really worth the effort of finding a supplier and procuring them myself. Story 13. I didn't know this was a thing, but anyone who didn't assume that most designer items were made cheaply and likely in sweatshops is probably lacking in critical thinking. Story 14. Don't believe everything you see on TikTok. China produces high-quality knockoffs that use many of the same materials and are of comparable quality, but Birkenstocks, for example, aren't made anywhere except Germany, and Birkin bags aren't made in China despite the claims made in those videos. There is a well-informed commentary by a fashion industry writer for the New York Times who is a reliable source on this topic. The writer makes a compelling point that China should start creating its own labels with unique designs instead of copying others. Additionally, there is a detailed discussion by the same writer that examines the differences between the knockoff bags made in China and the authentic ones made in France. Story 15. Something tells me they are scammers trying to deceive. Why claim you make high-end products when you produce satisfactory knockoffs and then use tariff confusion to sell more? They could be telling the truth, but I suspect they are not. Story 16. My thought is, who cares? I never bought that product anyway. People who did are just wasting their money, and they will probably continue to make the same mistake. Story 17. I'm from Italy, and I know some Italian friends who work for a small subcontractor factory that produces for luxury brands. I can't deny that some products may be made in China. I really don't know, but Italian craftsmanship does exist. Please don't believe propaganda on social media. In your opinion, do these Chinese fabrics pose a risk to the subcontractors with Louis Vuitton or Gucci just to show you the reality? I know a Gucci attorney, and they take these matters seriously. They are showing you the counterfeits, which may be of good quality but are still fake. Story 18. Designer luxury goods are about the name on the product, not how much the product costs to make. I used to know someone who was really into the whole luxury lifestyle, even though she couldn't afford it. She was so proud of her Prada bag. It cost $2,000. She could have had a better bag that she wasn't so afraid of damaging for less than 1/10 the price. But she wouldn't get the admiration from all the other superficial women who would see it. Story 19. It's not true, is it? People blindly believe everything they see on social media these days. I've seen some videos claiming that Hermès bags are made in China, shipped to France for the Made in France tag to be added, and then sold. The footage in these videos is clearly from factories producing cheap knockoffs. As for high street products, of course, that is all made in China, and I thought that was well known. Story 20. I know it's two very different markets, but when I shop for quality leather goods, I always seek out the stereotypical older craftsman working in a garage who will handcraft everything for you. If you don't care about brands, you can find amazing quality from traditional crafters in small towns or on platforms like Etsy, if you can sort through all the low-quality products available. Story 21. I mean, they are lying. Do not get me wrong, luxury brands can be deceptive and are mostly about the logo. However, people who create knockoffs have been claiming, it's made in the same factory using the same materials, I swear, for as long as knockoffs have existed. Story 22. It's half-truths. Some products are outsourced while higher-end items will likely remain in-house, such as Swiss watches of a certain tier. Lower-end items like cosmetics and perfumes, as well as street fashion, are often fully outsourced. Additionally, the factories aren't revealing their identities, as that could jeopardize their business with clients. What you are observing may not be the direct suppliers. They could be a tier down or even competitors. Some of the pricing reflects a range of possibilities, while others seem too high, which may be based on guesswork. In summary, take it with a grain of salt. There's some truth, some exaggeration, and some statements that are not true. Story 23. You can't assume that everything from China is cheap and poorly made. It may be cheaper to produce, but that does not automatically mean it is of low quality. Skills can be learned. Story 24. The video about Birkin bags didn't say, "We make them for Hermes." It stated, "We make them with the same materials and with cheaper labor and no label," which sounds more like, "We make a very good knockoff." I haven't watched many of the videos, but are they actually the manufacturer of the product that receives finishing touches? Or are they claiming, "We can make the same product but cheaper"? Story 25. China's exposure of luxury brand manufacturing on platforms like TikTok is a strategic response to US tariffs. By showcasing how high-end goods are produced at low costs, Chinese factories aim to challenge Western luxury pricing and appeal to cost-conscious American consumers. This move also serves as a demonstration of soft power, highlighting China's manufacturing capabilities amid escalating trade tensions. Story 26. They are almost all entirely luxury goods driven by conspicuous consumption. The real luxury goods are the ones you have never heard of. Story 27. It is impressive. Luxury brands are often overpriced and cater to individuals seeking attention. This release may significantly impact the companies. Story 28. There is nothing to reveal. Western consumers have known this for decades. What many do not understand is that Western companies act as a quality filter. If I buy an item made in China from a Western company, I know what quality I can expect from that company, and I may even have a guarantee. That is what I pay the premium for. I can order copycat products from online marketplaces, but I do not know what quality I can expect. This might work for inexpensive products, but not for those where I need service and quality. It is conceivable that importers could take over this task, but it can be difficult with expensive products. Story 29. I'll be honest, I thought people were aware that they are just paying for the label or brand and that the quality of the product is low tier. Story 30. I support personal expression through fashion, but I am also disheartened by those who spend thousands of dollars on designer handbags or jackets simply for the label, especially in a world where many face hunger, lack basic medicine, and struggle with significant environmental issues. It is disappointing to see people choose to waste their money on brand name items. Story 31. I am not surprised. I get the impression that luxury brands are simply name brands with billion-dollar marketing campaigns and expert legal teams. Nike and their expensive shoes come to mind. If you understand supply and demand and have a strong presence in the market, then value is really just a concept that can be imposed on the buyer. Low production combined with high name recognition will make anything seem like a rarity. Story 32. It's interesting but without any real effect. If you think that a luxury brand stopped an employee discount because customers want to feel reassured that they are the only ones who can afford the products, you will understand how much the brand matters. A similar bag without the brand but affordable will probably increase in price. Story 33. It is a scam. Any manufacturer producing for big-name brands is likely under strict contractual obligations to not disclose that fact, said Hao Dong, a senior lecturer in operations and project management at the University of Southampton. They definitely wouldn't be publicly selling those big-name products on the internet. Story 34. Nikes are a good example of products that are made for very little but are valued highly because of the brand. Everyone knows their expensive shoes are produced by people in poverty, and their cell phones are not manufactured in North America. As for true luxury brands, I don't think it matters to the vast majority of people. Story 35. Luxury brands often represent the extreme disparity between wealth and practicality. The difference in quality between a well-made item and a luxury item typically does not justify the exorbitant prices. A decently made bag, pair of pants, or shoes will serve just as well as those with high-end labels. Story 36. I just bought some counterfeit Louis Vuitton designer bags and put on some imitation Labubu. Cost me $10 total for the small sling bag. Story 37. It is very good and useful for the consumer market. Just buy high-quality items at a reasonable price. Designer labels are often overpriced. You are mostly paying for the logo. If showing off and pursuing a certain social status is your priority, then continue buying them. However, if you are looking for real value, focus on quality over branding. Ultimately, Silent wealth represents true class. Story 38. Only people buying luxury brands are new money and those who want others to think they have wealth. True wealth is associated with companies that regular individuals may have never heard of and likely never will, unless they are part of a wealthy person's circle. Story 39. Does the location where something is made dictate its quality? It is possible to get low-quality items produced in Europe and high-quality items produced in China. Story 40. Not a surprise, although it is really strange that luxury brands are being placed at the center of a propaganda battle. Story 41. They are telling us that water is wet? We have known this since at least 2000 when it became a global issue that people started raising awareness about. Story 42. I am one of those people who honestly didn't know. If something says made in France, I assume it is actually made in France, not China. I would guess that many people think these bags and clothes are made where the label indicates. Story 43. Didn't everyone already know this? All those extra zeros were for the brand tag. I somehow doubt the prices claimed by the Chinese manufacturers too. I think in one of the handbag videos, they claimed the zipper was for $25 and the other hardware for $100. Come on, guys. Story 44. How difficult is it to search for the production cost of a 100% cotton t-shirt? It is approximately $3 to $5, depending on the country of production. Balenciaga is selling t-shirts for $850. They are 100% cotton and feature a print. Everyone knows they pay an extraordinarily high premium for showing off. No one can possibly believe the premium is for better quality. Story 45. It seemed obvious to me how we manage private labels in the United States. Items coming from the same source are priced differently based on being labeled as a store brand. I have also seen private labeling succeed in the manufacturing sector. It is all about brand appeal rather than the quality of the product. Story 46. Expose is a strong word. This has been well known for decades, and people still bought it because of the brand name. Story 47. I love it. It actually shows that the so-called counterfeit luxury brands made in China are the genuine article. Story 48. If anyone thought the price of a luxury brand was connected to its manufacturing cost, they were hopelessly naive. You pay for the label, and that isn't a great revelation. To be honest, in some cases, I am surprised the production cost was as high as it was. I expected a tenfold markup, for example, $1,000 to produce a $10,000 handbag, not a fivefold markup, $3,000 to produce $15,000. Story 49. While it's good that the margins on these products are coming to light, I don't understand why people think this is a valid response to the trade war. Aren't most of these products from European companies? How is that a response to the US market? I'm not condoning this, but I have purchased high-quality replicas over the years through Taobao and found that some even had better quality than the original items. Story 50. I can't believe people are surprised by this. Look at the labels on items. They don't lie to you. It clearly states made in China. This issue goes beyond fashion as well. Many items that people perceive as high quality are also made in China. Story 51. I am pleased that they are being released now, but we must also be cautious. Many vendors are making claims that are not accurate. Story 52. Honestly, they just confirmed what many people already knew. China's labor laws favor manufacturers and allow them to access cheap labor. Cheap labor means lower production costs, which is what I don't understand about these tariffs. Americans are not going to perform these jobs for low wages. If they did, it would still be more expensive for Americans to produce goods, leading to higher prices that would ultimately hurt the people manufacturing the products. Story 53. This will lead to an increase in new brands selling similar quality products worldwide in various countries that do not impose high tariffs on China. Story 54. Lululemon is Canadian. They are targeting the company because it is less likely to provoke American retaliation. In fact, many of the brands they are damaging are not American. Story 55. Anyone buying luxury goods is foolish. I have believed this before the tariff war, and I will continue to believe this after the tariff war. Story 56. No one is surprised by the information, But it is surprising that China would distance itself in that manner, as if it is not also participating in the deal. Story 57. Why is this a shock to anyone? Didn't we all know this? It's nice that the manufacturers are reaching out with their contact information, but we always knew that luxury brands aren't worth the price we pay. We're only paying for the name. Story 58. It is a display of power without a doubt. Honestly, it strikes a chord because those brands promote a luxurious lifestyle, not the behind-the-scenes factory operations. It is similar to revealing the secrets of a magic trick. Once people realize that it is just ordinary factories in China or Vietnam producing that $2,000 bag, it disrupts the image. What is interesting is that many people probably knew this subconsciously, but now that it is out in the open, there is a completely different atmosphere. Story 59. It doesn't matter. People pay high prices for luxury brands for the legitimacy, regardless of what they are made from or how much they cost. Obviously, there is a baseline in quality that must be met, but the actual source does not really matter. Only that it is the actual official product. Many people do not approve of fake sneakers, but if you cannot tell and have no way to verify, it might as well be real. Plausible deniability is almost as good as knowing for sure that something is authentic. Those who care about quality and workmanship have plenty of other places to shop. Story 60. I'm shocked this wasn't already common knowledge. The tags usually indicate exactly where items are made. How oblivious do you have to be not to be aware? How many years of people making crass jokes about underpaid foreign workers producing everything we buy did you miss? Story 61. I love it. Hey America, we'll sell to you, and the tariff cost will be less than the markup the middle company will get. It hurts the American economy. Sure, but I'm out of ideas. All these companies are falling in line with Trump anyway. I'm at the point of hurting myself to prove a point, especially if America is my focus. Story 62. It's not true. Stop believing everything you see on TikTok. The guy with the Hermes Birkin bags is selling counterfeits and trying to get you to buy his fake items for an inflated price. Story 63. Good. Now you can buy directly from the source and pay the tariff, making it still cheaper than buying from the brand. Story 64. It's something I both support and am indifferent about at the same time. I think, go ahead and expose the issues, while also feeling, I don't care about people who waste their money on this. Story 65. This has been common knowledge for anyone with experience traveling in China, so I'm surprised it even made the news. I have been going there for over 15 years and have seen many markets flooded with various brands. And yes, with the authentic products, not imitations. For example, if they have an order for 10,000 bags, they will produce 50,000 and flood the local market with the surplus. They do this with most goods, not only in fashion. There is a steady stream of both foreigners and locals buying from these markets. Story 66. This is not news. If you have at least half a brain, you know this has been happening for years across all industries such as shoes, clothing, and bags. It is all the same. Story 67. I find it frustrating. They are suppliers and are disrespecting their clients. For those who are unaware, it is noteworthy. However, I recall these brands treating a family member similarly in the late 1980s and early 1990s, with Spain as the supplier. They then relocated to other countries as it became costly in Spain. Story 68. It's rather dubious as these claims have not been verified. Anyone could produce a video and make claims. They could be the manufacturer producing fake low or high-grade goods for all we know. Secondly, what they mentioned refers only to their manufacturing costs. Manufacturing is just one of the many considerations when dealing with a product under a brand. Imported goods entail more work and costs for you. Story 69. I live in Thailand and make trips to India, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. I have walked through some handbag shops, one in India in particular, making leather picture frames and handbags for a boutique shop on Oxford Street, London. The picture frames cost about $1.25 and retail for $29.99. The handbags cost around $30 and retailed for $4,000 to $5,000 in the UK. The smell of industrial adhesive in that place was overwhelming, with no ventilation or open windows, only air conditioning. There is a documentary called The Corporation that compares corporations to psychopaths and includes a segment on the garment industry. Story 70. I thought this was common knowledge. You are paying for the brand name, not the product. So yes, it will be more expensive. Story 71. China is having a dispute with the West. They are upset with the United States and now seek revenge. They aim to flood the European car market with cheap and underpowered vehicles, with a few exceptions, to undermine car manufacturers, including American brands. All this is an effort to demonstrate that communism works. Story 72. I was watching a morning news show that was profiling business people facing serious challenges due to the trade conflict with China. I am not sure if the reporters did this deliberately, but the way all the interviewed business people were selling low-quality plastic products really emphasized the question, why should we care about this? The reporters covering the trade conflict spent most of their attention on a Chinese American who lamented that her mall shop filled with inexpensive plastic knockoff toys would not be profitable without Chinese factories producing affordable items for her to sell. It reminded me of when I saw newscasters covering the Malibu wildfires focusing on how many movie stars lost their multi-million-dollar seaside mansions, instead of paying attention to the thousands of regular people who became homeless. These are critical issues, and sometimes the way the media covers them makes you wonder what they are thinking. Story 73. I doubt that many people were actually surprised by this. Where did people think they were manufactured? Story 74. Was this supposed to be a surprise? I've known for years. The whole point of fast fashion, including in so-called luxury brands, is that it is cheaply made, flashy items that are not intended to last for more than a year or two. Story 75. If you are willing to pay $500 for a t-shirt just to show everyone how wealthy you are, then this may have prompted you to reevaluate some aspects of your life. Perhaps it is a good thing. Story 76. All the power to them. To anyone who is surprised, please do not vote. We do not need to be pushing the car with your lack of participation. Story 77. It's great. Nobody rich actually buys luxury brands. It is all just a trick to sell status symbols to less fortunate individuals. Story 78. You would need to be incredibly unaware if this is news. Do people understand anything? Regardless of the industry you are in, your goal is to maximize profit and lower costs. Again, you would need to be genuinely unaware or seriously impaired to not understand that this is what is happening. Story 79. If you are inclined to purchase these items, you may be misguided. It seems you are eager for others to perceive you as wealthy. If that is your preference, there is a cost involved. Story 80. The motivation for authorized manufacturers of luxury brands to disclose production details is significantly higher than that of counterfeit factories. Due to the trade conflict, many clients demand steep discounts, sometimes as high as 50%, after placing orders. Since factories operate on thin profit margins, this results in financial losses. If factories refuse discounts, clients abandon orders, and even after deducting deposits from costs, losses still occur. To break even, factories may resort to reselling products through alternative platforms, a practice that luxury brands actively block. Counterfeit factories, however, face far less impact. Their operations bypass legitimate export channels altogether, targeting domestic customers, which allows them to freely resell on any platform without regard for luxury brands' restrictions. Thus, authorized manufacturers have stronger incentives to disclose brand-related information compared to counterfeit operations. Story 81. The United States is a large market, but it is not the only market in the world. Engaging in a petty dispute and risking future opportunities does not make sense, as those brands will continue to sell in other regions. Story 82. This is common knowledge in China. 80% of the world's luxury goods are made in China. Luxury goods companies used to handle design themselves, but now even the design is outsourced to China. The actual cost of luxury goods is only 5 to 10% of the selling price. Many imitations in China resemble the genuine items because they are produced by the same factories and workers, but without the logo. Story 83. I believe some of the TikTok videos serve as propaganda from the Chinese government. However, I think there is validity to much of the content. Story 84. Yes, China manufactures a significant portion of the world's goods, and the retailer markup on them is excessive. This is why comments like, "Your MAGA hats are going to cost $200, are absurd. Even if you pay a 250% tariff on the cost of imported goods, you aren't going to increase the selling price by that much. It is likely a small fraction of that. If you have ever used Temu, you have a good idea of what retailers in the United States actually pay for their Chinese manufactured goods. Overall, this trade conflict is unfortunate and will hurt many people, but it is encouraging that many luxury brands and retailers are being called out for price gouging. Story 85. China has been doing this for a long time, as Chinese investors and businesses have purchased a few luxury designer houses that can produce high-quality knockoffs at a much lower cost compared to the original brands. There is a black market in China, with some presence in the Philippines. China has acquired several fashion design houses in Italy, allowing them to produce these products in China, or they have manufacturing companies that create the authentic designer clothes, handbags, and more. This is why many Western airports and ports, especially in Europe, the United States, and Australia, are cracking down on counterfeit goods and high-quality fakes in comparison to genuine designer brands. Luxury brand manufacturers utilize China's factories for their low labor costs, while the luxury brands source their raw materials. The suppliers of luxury brands find these natural materials and other proprietary products, but the designer brands provide the designs, ideas, and sell the finalized products to consumers around the world. This trade situation has become increasingly absurd, similar to what has already occurred with products coming from Mexico. We will see significant price increases for goods we buy less frequently. Only the wealthy can afford these goods, while the middle class and the poor will struggle. The actions of certain political figures are contributing to this inflation and changing how we buy and consume products. This concern also extends to brands that were acquired by Chinese investors in recent years, particularly American brands like Smithfield, which produces Virginia ham. Some people seem to overlook the warnings about these Chinese investments in struggling companies, aiming to take advantage of their operations. Tariffs imposed by certain political figures are escalating into a trade dispute involving the United States and other countries. These tariffs will negatively affect us and lead to decreased consumer spending. American companies need to invest in partnerships in South American countries and other regions with lower minimum wages compared to the highest average wages in the United States. We still need to produce food, medicines, pharmaceuticals, agricultural products, microchips, and goods in which we excel. Story 86. It is okay, I suppose. Many luxury brands are produced in China. However, Chinese manufacturers often copy luxury brands and create counterfeit products. It can be difficult to determine whether a product is an authentic luxury brand made in China or simply a replica that resembles a luxury brand but is not genuine. Story 87. It is propaganda and makes you question whether this is the kind of partner you desire for the long term. Story 88. It's similar to a luxury watch. People pay extremely high prices to demonstrate their wealth, not for the purpose of telling time. These brands capitalize on affluent consumers, so I doubt it will impact their sales. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.